Hello, my fellow Bereans and YouTubers. Today's message is about Jesuit futurist pastors. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with them, but I'm going to approach this from a very different perspective. Let me show you. Catechism of the Catholic Church. This is the second edition, promulgated by John Paul II. We're going to turn to this in a few minutes. Before I do that, I'd like to tell you what has inspired me to make this message. Firstly, I've received a lot of flack from very ill-informed pastors. Pastors calling me all kinds of names for decrying Jesuit futurism. Yet I have referenced all the reformers of any notoriety on this subject, and they all agree with me. I have read from the early church leaders on this subject. They are in agreement with the reformers. I have read from the post-Protestant reformers. And I have recently done a series, I'm still in the middle of doing it, from John Gill's commentaries on Antichrist and the Fourth Kingdom. And I have exegeted the very scriptures themselves. There really is no more information or data available. Not only that, I've referenced the very dispensationalists themselves. The granddaddy of them all, Clarence Larkin, who wrote the landmark work, Dispensational Truth, in which he states that dispensationalism owes its eschatology to Ribera, the Jesuit priest. Now, I don't know how much more information I can put forward before these pastors are going to wake up. I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall, and maybe I am. There is no future Antichrist to be revealed. Antichrist was revealed when the Roman Empire fell. It was replaced by Papal Rome. That is the Antichrist, the dynasty of Antichrist. And that dynasty prevails to this very day, and it will be brought to an end when Christ returns, but not the way the futurists say. Now, the very Catechism of the Catholic Church confirms what I've taught. Let's find out what the Catechism says. There it is, Catechism of the Catholic Church. Let me turn to the page. Antichrist. Okay? That is from the glossary on page 866. And here's what the Roman Catholic Church says about futurism and Antichrist. Page 866. Antichrist. The deceitful one, referred to in the New Testament, associated with the mystery of iniquity, which will precede the second coming of Christ. Did you hear that? The mystery of iniquity, the Antichrist, which will precede the second coming of Christ. Now, how often have you heard pastors teach that Antichrist has not yet been revealed? That Antichrist will be revealed in the future, in a future temple that needs to be rebuilt. You've heard that from nearly every pulpit in America today. Protestants, Baptists, especially independent fundamental Baptists. They all teach this nonsense. Did you know that that's what the Catholic Church teaches? Did you know that's a Catholic doctrine? I've made this point through dozens and dozens of messages. And now I'm turning to the very Catechism, written by John Paul II, or at least edited and modified by him. And there it says that Antichrist arises near the end of the age. So when I say, if your pastor's teaching the unveiling of Antichrist happens in the distant future, he's teaching Jesuit doctrine. This comes right out of the pages of Ribera's work, also Lacunza's work. I just finished reading through parts of Lacunza's work that deal with Antichrist. He teaches the very doctrine of the future revealing of Antichrist. Lacunza was another Jesuit priest, like Ribera. And here we have the Catholic Catechism saying the same thing. Let me read it to you again. Page 866, Catholic Catechism, Antichrist, the deceitful one, referred to in the New Testament, associated with the mystery of iniquity, which will precede the second coming of Christ. Is that what your pastor teaches? That the Antichrist will be revealed preceding the second coming of Christ, sometime in a 7-year tribulation? Is that what your pastor teaches? That's Catholic doctrine. It's designed for a reason. The reason it's in the Catholic Catechism is because it protects the Catholic Church and the popes from being identified as the Antichrist system and Antichrist dynasty. That's why it's in the Catholic Catechism. Yet 99% of the pastors of America teach this ignorantly, denying that this is a Catholic doctrine. It in fact is. Let's turn to another place in the Catechism. And now I'll read from page 176, item 675, Catechism of the Catholic Church regarding Antichrist and the end time. Quote, "Before Christ's second coming, the Church must pass through a final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. The persecution that accompanies her pilgrimage on earth will unveil the mystery of iniquity." Now let's stop and think about that. The persecution will unveil the mystery of iniquity. This is Vatican speak for tribulation. Does your pastor teach a 7-year tribulation and then an unveiling of Antichrist somewhere in the middle of that? Well, that's out of the Catholic Catechism. So you can see, number one, the Catholic Catechism summarizes the idea of Antichrist in exactly the same way as the dispensational futurists. Men like John MacArthur teach this future Antichrist doctrine. Tim LaHaye, Chuck Missler, John Hagee, the list goes on. All of the big, important guys all teach the Catholic doctrine of the unveiling of Antichrist near the end of the age, just before Christ's second coming. Now you have to ask yourself, why are these important pastors all teaching Jesuit Catholic doctrine? Do they not know any better? I think they know what they're doing. The question is, do you know what they're doing? And do you know what the doctrine of the Catholic Church is regarding these matters? Have you read the Catechism? Have you studied the Protestant Reformers, the post-Protestant Reformers, the pre-Protestant Reformers, the early church leaders? If you have, then all of this should resonate with you. Now, reading through the Catholic Catechism is really laborious. I know. I've read through most of it. It's a pain. Yet, it's worthwhile, because herein you will find many of the doctrines coming off the pulpits of America today to be Roman Catholic, dyed-in-the-wool, enshrined in their catechism. There was a pastor who confronted me aggressively and very rudely on this subject. Refused to look at any of the facts, yet abused me something terrible when I said the doctrines he was teaching came from the Jesuits. When I referred him to the great dispensationalist scholars who said the same thing, it only made him more angry. And now I'm saying to you, my YouTube listeners and Bereans, don't buy into this futurism doctrine stuff. It's Catholic doctrine. When a pastor stands up and preaches, Antichrist is a thing of the future, there will be a 7-year tribulation, and then Antichrist will stand up in this rebuilt temple just before Christ returns. When you hear that, you're hearing the Catholic Catechism. I just read you the summary from the glossary. It declares that this Antichrist is a thing of the future, emerging near the end of the age before Christ returns. Roman Catholic doctrine. Don't buy into it. Many thanks for listening.